So I've always been one to question. I think, growing up in Christianity, well, first of all, I think it's part of my personality. I always question everything, something about authority. But growing up Christian, I've always questioned why we did what we did. And usually within the faith of Christianity, you're told not to question. You're told just to believe God or believe those that were sent, quote unquote, in his name and what they said. And so, a little bit of it was just appeasing. Okay, well, I won't question this, but in the back of my mind. But once I became an adult with my own children, married, going through the same rigmarole, I started to realize that something was amiss. And at some point in time, I said to myself, if this is the best that God has to offer, I might as well go and just worship Satan because this is not for the, this wasn't for me. It was for the birds.
What doctrines did not jive with you at the time?
Well, honestly, as an adult, married, like I said, married with children, we did everything. We did the tithing. We went to church Monday through Sunday. My kids were in the church's school, private school thing, and yet and still my life was in shambles. And I couldn't understand if we were following the formula that was passed down as the thus saith the Lord, why was my life not showing the fruits of those things? Because you're taught that in church that God's word goes forth and produces something. And so if you are under his word, listening to his word, following his, quote unquote, precepts and commandments, then it should be producing something. It wasn't producing anything. But then when you looked around at other, I say traditions, way of life, faith, spirituality, the communities looked far different from the ones that we were living in. And so that really started my curiosity.
And then what led you to Judaism? Because it's still a Judeo-Christian, like they're still very much cousins in terms of religious. What drew you to that religion specifically?
Well, honestly, a friend of mine by the name of Kathy Butler, she was kind of like a sister mother to me. And so I remember one day she called me and she said, LaToya, my family and I have converted to the Hebrew roots of the Christian faith. And I was like, what the hell? Hebrew roots of the Christian faith. I was like, what is that? And so she was like, yeah, we observe the Sabbath and the high holy days or the holy days, feast days, and we don't eat pork anymore. And at that very moment, I was actually sauteing some pork chops. So I was like, good luck with that girl. And and so, but she was like she was literally telling me that her family's life had changed, that her children were different, her marriage was different, her finances were different. And as I said before in my story, that my life was in shambles. Not that, my marriage was just horrible, but it's just that we couldn't rob Peter enough to pay Paul, and things were not making sense. And so obviously that caused a strain in the marriage. So when she said that her home life was in fact changing and that she could see the results of that change, I was like, you know what? What do I have to lose?